So wait, in the Sarah Jane Adventures episode Mona Lisa's Revenge, the Mona Lisa is an alien fugitive inside a painting. So does that mean somewhere in her skeletal system, written in felt tip, is this is a fake? It's supposed to be funny if it was written right here, but it'd also be kind of vulgar. Let's not think about that. Moving on from where we left off, we did the demons, and that was the very first Doctor Who episode I bought on video. But of course, I was in high school, didn't really have a job where I could, every bit of money I could just go on buying Doctor Who videos, so I still wanted to get a chance to see as many as possible. Well, fortune had it, my sister-in-law, her father was also a Doctor Who fan, and he got a good leg up on me in buying Doctor Who videos. So every now and then I went over to his place and actually was allowed to borrow some of his VHSs. And of course, I had been told so many times, Tom Baker is the best Doctor, Tom Baker's the best Doctor. Okay, fine, I'll go watch an actual episode with this Tom Baker, because of course my only exposure to him was the Five Doctors, and really the Five Doctors was not the best place to say, oh yeah, that's my first exposure to the Fourth Doctor, because it really isn't. So the first one I grabbed to watch of Tom Baker's, at the time I didn't really appreciate how much I was going to love this episode, but now I actually widely consider it to be probably one of my favorite Tom Baker stories, and as it turns out, a lot of people consider it their favorite Tom Baker stories. City of Death. This one was actually written by David Agnew. It's a lie, in fact, and actually I only found out just recently, is that every now and then, two writers, when they don't want to acknowledge a collaboration, or maybe they don't want to get in trouble with a union or something, there's some kind of technical reason why. A lot of times they'll operate under some kind of pseudonym and just attach it to the episode. I've discovered this actually happened a couple times on Doctor Who, and we'll get into those when we get to them. But this one was actually a collaboration with seasoned writer David Fisher, who only just prior wrote The Stones of Blood for the Key to Time saga, and newly minted script editor Douglas Adams. If you know your Douglas Adams, you know that his fingerprints are all over the story, and that's one of the major things that makes the story work. Apart from the fact that it is just loopy as all get out, it's got a great array of characters right next to the Doctor and Romana. It has some of the most quotable moments of the Fourth Doctor era. Another thing that's important to note about this particular story is that in the history of Doctor Who, this is the very first time the story actually filmed abroad, and we're not talking about different areas of the countryside. We're not talking about Scotland. This is the first time the show was actually filmed outside of the UK. This one was actually filmed in Paris. Now, unlike the days of John Nathan Turner, where he said, oh, let's film in Spain, just to film in Spain. You just write the script around it being filmed in Spain. Or let's go to Amsterdam. Why are we going to Amsterdam? I don't know. We just want to go to Amsterdam. This time, it actually had a point. There was a reason why they had to be in Paris to film this. And you can't just fake Paris in a bunch of studio sets. And Paris is a city with its own singular style, its own singular aesthetic. You can't just film in different parts of London or any other parts of Britain and fake it and expect us to believe that we're in Paris. This story had to be filmed in Paris, especially when you take into account that a lot of this plays around one single object, the Mona Lisa. And the Mona Lisa is in the Louvre, and the Louvre is in Paris. So you kind of need to film this sucker in Paris. And they take advantage of it in every time possible. Now, most of the time, to say budget, you probably assume that they get a lot of stock footage of just them wandering around Paris or running around Paris, and there is some of that, but they actually take the time to have some dialogue scenes in there. In fact, the final scene is filmed at the top of the Eiffel Tower, and it's a beautiful scene. It's gorgeously done. So I go on about how filming in Paris fits the story, but what is the story? Well, the story begins, ominously enough, millions of years ago when the Earth is nothing but chaos and primordial ooze just strewn about the place. And then the camera pans onto a model of, yeah, for us it's a model, but of an alien ship, and a cycloptic alien named Scaroth, warning that if he takes off, this thing will explode, but of course he's getting beckoning voices saying, Scaroth, if you don't do this, we're gonna die. And begrudgingly he does it, and the ship explodes, and that's it. Or so we think. It's a very strange, out of left field opening, and then all of a sudden we fade to Paris in 1979, where the Doctor and Romana on a randomized trip, and well, they're having a great time, but then all of a sudden they start feeling splinters in time. It's like it's like kind of like a migraine or something like that, where all of a sudden the things shift and they just start. On the other side of town, there's a count named Scarleone, and along with his wife, well, they're planning a scheme to steal the Mona Lisa from the Louvre. Seems like typical earthly concerns, except when you go down to his cellar, you find that there's a scientist down there working on time travel experiments. Why? There's levels of intrigue here that make you curious about it. Of course, it also helps that the Count is played by Julian Glover. Recent TV fans would know him from Game of Thrones as the Grand Maester. I have known him and loved him over the years in a variety of projects in the 80s. Of course, he played Donovan in The Last Crusade. He also played a vital role in Empire Strikes Back. Harry Potter fans would know him as the voice of Aragog. Julian Glover is a quintessential actor who definitely deserves every bit of praise that could ever be bestowed onto him. And this, to me, City of Death, I think, is probably one of my favorite performances of his. The thing he does throughout this entire story is he's just charming. But that doesn't mean that he's not 100% evil. You know, there's moments where he actually does get like, dude, do what I'm telling you. And it works because, again, Julian Glover's that good an actor. But the other side character who makes this a singular story, and it's a character who... You ever have those characters that pop up in Doctor Who episodes who you love so much that you wish that they became companions in their own right? Well, I have a whole list that I would love to tell one day of side characters who I would have loved to have actually traveled in the TARDIS. But this is the one, above all else, who would have been amazing, particularly if he had gone on to travel with Romana in the Fourth Doctor. It's Duggan. Duggan is an insurance investigator who is assigned to protect the Mona Lisa. Well... he has this little quirk about him that the Doctor tends to find irritating. Duggan has I don't want to say a violent streak, but he has kind of a sledgehammer tactic to him. His method in order to get any kind of results usually involves smashing things or punching things. And one of the best running gags throughout the entire story is whenever the Doctor is interrogating someone, Duggan just comes out of the blue and punches him, and the Doctor just goes, Duggan, why is it whenever I try to get to the meat of the situation, you have to punch it? And I'm not going to tell you how, you have to watch the episode, but that running gag comes to pay off in the best way right at the dead end of the story, so you got that going for you, which is great. Duggan is such a fun character. A lot of it, apart from just that quirk, he also has some great interplay, especially with Romana. There's a great scene where him and Romana bust into a cafe, and Romana has some great lines at his expense, just totally humbling him. And that's the fun thing about him, is that he's not an idiot by any stretch of the imagination, he's just blunt. That's the charm of his character, is that he's rational. He has the same goals as them. And also he is not a useless character. He actually furthers the plot in many ways. Actually, one of the major plot revelations is that the Count, while he's trying to engineer a heist of the Mona Lisa from the Louvre, they go down to his cellar and they find that he has 6 genuine copies of the Mona Lisa. Not forgeries. These are all actually the real Mona Lisa, all painted by Leonardo da Vinci in his cellar. So it had this nice bit of intrigue. Why is he making a big deal trying to steal something that he's already got 6 legitimate copies? And Duggan actually drops a bomb as to what they're doing, and it all comes into play as to why he's doing time travel experiments in the cellar. I actually want to stay spoiler free on this one because there's some great twists. In fact, the part 2 cliffhanger is outstanding because it actually just blows everything out of the water when it comes to what you thought the story was going to be, and it completely changes the game. You end up finding this puzzle piece which actually drops a major hint as to why Count Scarleone is so hell-bent to get these experiments in time travel achieved, and it all relates to that prologue we had in the beginning with the alien on the primordial Earth, and it's kind of mind-shredding, and it's a wonderful concept. Whether or not the revelation is something that you can believe credibly on a scientific level, you know what, I'll leave that to you. I am not an expert, but you know what, the way they write this episode, they make it sound credible, and that's the best part. It's an exceptionally witty story with great dialogue interplay and a consistently interesting story all throughout, and that is a load of fun, and actually has a great resolution in the tail end. And the final scene atop the Eiffel Tower actually does a great job hitting home the importance of art. And actually, I remember alluding to it in my Velvet Buzzsaw review, where people are so obsessed with the prestige of owning rare art, they never stop to actually take into account the importance of art in general. It's not about the prestige of owning it, it's about what the art is as far as, you know, the beauty, the grace, and the craft of making said piece of art. And the Doctor makes a very vital point, saying, isn't it more important to admire the art as opposed to admiring the prestige of owning it? And the ending of the episode actually makes a great point about that. I know I'm being vague on the details, but again, I'm trying to be spoiler free on this. This is definitely one of the best of the Tom Baker era, and I have a theory, and I know it may not be a popular theory. I just noticed that there seemed to be a bit of a spark, a bit of a twinkle with the Fourth Doctor when he was married with Douglas Adams' writing. It just seemed very clear that Douglas Adams' writing paired with Tom Baker's personification of the Doctor just seemed to be the ultimate marriage. And while I will say it definitely shined in episodes like The Pirate Planet, which was actually written by Adams, and if you ever watch Shada, like especially like the original footage, a lot of that really stands out. But even in lackluster episodes like Creature from the Pit, or even a lot of the various episodes throughout the Key to Time saga, which weren't written by him but obviously doctored by him, a lot of the great funny moments of the Fourth Doctor, you can tell Douglas Adams had a hand in it. Well, this is the one where you really get to see a lot of it shine. A lot of the moments that really define what made the Fourth Doctor such a classic Doctor are in this episode. And I think because of the fact that the story has a level of absurdity to it that complements the Fourth Doctor. Even though I know a lot of people love Mary Tam as Romana, I actually really love Lalla Ward's Romana better, just because I like that this is a Romana who seemed to embrace the renegade Time Lord aspect. Like, she's finally learning to enjoy her time with the Doctor, where both of them are letting themselves be reckless. I like the fact that she's a bit more fun-spirited, and I think this one really kind of helped define their dynamic a lot better. And I don't know, it just works. And I suppose this also helps that this is before they got married and in the latter times together where they look like they just want to kill each other. City Death to me, particularly with all the times I've watched it and how many times I always feel the need to want to quote it, I think it's safe to say for me it is probably my favorite of the Tom Baker stories. And I suppose for all the ones that come afterwards, it's going to be something of a downhill slope when I start reviewing those, but really I just couldn't wait to get to this one. Now, a lot of Classic Who fans would say if you want to start watching the classic series with the Fourth Doctor, start with just the Daleks, and I actually do agree to a very strong extent. But really, if you want a story that perfectly encapsulates what made the Fourth Doctor so much fun and what made him such an endearment to fans back in the day, honestly, I am gonna say City of Death. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you believe that there are other shining examples from the Tom Baker era that perfectly sum up why he was the Doctor of his age? Or do you believe that City of Death is truly the one that you should always refer people to when you want them to start watching the classic series? Leave it all in the comments below. And for more addictive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click, thou shalt be served.